Good morning, everyone. So here we are, we can start now. Thanks very much for joining this first in a series of 3 webinars that we hope is going to be very action oriented because there's a lot of, we know, talking going on, but what we want to do is now see when we come out of this COVID, as we come out, we are going to really roll up our sleeves and get on with some really drastic change. To create a new type of regenerative economy, which is what this big umbrella word out there is about. I think, just in terms of setting the settings, the idea is that, we are living in the time of the biggest probably transformation that's happening since probably the Enlightenment that we saw in Europe about 200 years ago, in terms of massive shift, but nothing like it because the world is a very different place now, with all the technology, the connectedness, and also the nature of the crisis that we're facing and the solutions that it needs. So I think the time is asking us to respond with some very innovative and very collaborative ways of responding, because we know that responding alone is not going to work. It has to be collaborative because the nature of the challenges like climate change and inequality, which is on a massive scale, in terms of what's happening with, the inequality of wealth and climate change. Those are the 2 biggest symptoms of the current economic system that we have. One is social, which is the massive inequality, and the other one is environmental, which is the climate change. So we have 2 examples of environmental and social, the biggest symptoms. So we wanted to have this webinar. There's a series of 3 with Jean-Paul and all the people who are the first attendees as experts, to really look at what is the opportunity for corporations, for SMEs and startups to play a role in this transformation in regenerative. But it's a very big question, because the question is whether the way organizations are even set up they can respond. Because I have my doubts myself. I think I would be on the one extreme of the pole to say whether the current way organizations are even set up can respond, or we need completely new ways of organizing or different types of businesses that will actually be able to respond. So that's everything from me. Just briefly to say that Human Nation is a organization that's been founded to tackle these social environmental challenges from a local perspective. We want to create a blueprint, an open source social enterprise that can learn and create a community, and we can actually start building something that's an ecosystem for regenerative enterprises that includes, the financial part, the mentorship, the expertise, the startups, the experts, the entrepreneurs more than anything, and the communities, the citizens. So I just pass this back to Jean-Paul to explain a little bit from his angle, and then we go to the presenters.
Thank you very much, Aram. A very warm welcome to everyone today. It's a very nice day, at least in Belgium. I'm very happy that finally we started to do something instead of talking, because we are very idealistic and we always talk a lot. But today is a day about reaching out and seeing what we can do together. So I'm coming from more a corporate and an academic world. So I work a lot with scientists and engineers that are all trying to change the world. But I am confronted typically with the problem that most of the solutions, the technology solutions, already exist. So we are not using them. We're not incorporating them in our daily life. And that's a big pity. So most of the issue today to bring a change, the change that we need, is about reaching out to the entrepreneurs, is reaching out to the people that have specific mindset. And it's no longer about the technology or the tools. Personally, I am working a lot trying to convince companies to innovate, to design better products and better business models that do not need to sell material. And that's it. So I'll pass back the floor to Sharam, and let us kick this up.
Yeah, so we have a first poll that we're going to do, Jean-Paul. Before we do that, we can do a quick introduction of the experts. So I posted to you in the order that you like. I think maybe as it appears on the poster, Fabian, from left to right. If you want to start.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sharam and Jean-Paul and everybody else who joins today. I think it's an extremely important topic we're talking about, and you introduced it perfectly already. So I'm driven by really making a change, and my background is in neuroscience, but I turned an entrepreneur and recently founded Kabayam, which is a collaboration platform that incentivizes collaboration over competition, and I think this is what we need to move forward. And I bring in here my background in biomimicry, so learning from nature, learning from neuroscience, but also other things in nature, other organisms and systems, and together with systems thinking, with design thinking, so more human-centered. And yeah, I'm eager to combine all the expertise and power and wisdom we have, especially here in this webinar today, on the platform and making a change for the better, just as usual.
Fantastic, Fabian. Okay, so Sophie, do you want to go ahead?
Yes. Thanks a lot for organizing this webinar. Really great and very much needed. And also welcome everyone. So I'm Sophie Wisperen. I'm the founder of Doing Business, Doing Good. And it is my purpose to empower and inspire people to find and fulfill their purpose, and use this as a force for good and to create a positive impact for a better world, and really using their work, their jobs, their businesses, their organizations to create this better world. And I have a big driver to do this. I have 3 children. So that is my driver of urgency to do all I can. Yeah, some of you previously talked about, I mean, all the solutions are there, and that is indeed the case. But the big challenge is also that we need a lot of people, and I believe entrepreneurs have that in them, with a lot of courage and a lot of willpower. And the challenge for humanity is that at the moment that is lacking, because we have been separated from ourselves, separated from nature. So my big dream is, because so many people, actually research says 95% of people doesn't know their true self. My big dream is that the majority of people, and they say for a tipping point to reach, we need 20% of humanity. So my big dream is that at least 20%, more is better, of people really find their true purpose, because yeah, the change we need to realize is really the change we need to realize is I mean fast. So the change really starts with ourselves to find our true purpose. And that is also, yeah, from my experience in companies, I've been working for 15 years in companies, is that when transformation happen, that is when people connect to their own purpose and to that of the company, and then realize social and environmental impacts and change in their organizational cultures and organizations. So yeah, my big wish is that we all work together to empower people to find a purpose, and link that to what they can do to leave this world a better place.
Thank you very much, Sophie. I think that's a very critical point around the line between the individual and the corporation or the organization. And I think this is something Human Nation is very also focused on. We talk with Jean-Paul a lot, because how can we change our organizations if we don't change ourselves? I think it's fundamental that we look at that perspective that Sophie was just talking about.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I mean, this Corona crisis really reveals that we are connected to nature. We are nature, we are part of nature. So we need to change ourselves to change nature around us. Yeah, so there is a big opportunity to do that.
Excellent. Fantastic. Okay, and if you want to go ahead, Jean-Michel.
Think so. So hello everybody. So first of all, thank you. I'm really pleased to share this moment with you, and thank you to Jean-Paul Yousharam for organizing that. And I'm really happy to virtually meet also Fabian and Sophie, and I'm quite honored to share a bit the stage. But it's more, we're going to more interactive discussion, I think so. What concerns on myself, so yeah. I'm driven by sustainability since a long time. I've started interested in the topic almost 20 years ago, and especially sustainability in business. I have a business management background and an environmental science background. I work in different sustainability-related fields: climate change, renewable energies, sustainability consultancy, and in the past years also discovered the term of biomimicry and how we can get inspired by nature. It was a big aha moment because it's really a very interesting topic, and how do we ourselves interact with nature, but how can we also collect the wisdom and get inspired how it works. And from there on, I said, okay, it's maybe time to also to put everything in practice, and then how I launched the project Novobio. So we are a young startup. We really aim to build up regenerative solutions for the rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems, and especially on how we're focusing on soils and how we can apply the bio-inspired principles to regenerate degraded and heavy contaminated soils. So this is one of the main aspects. Aside of that, I'm also doing a lot of coaching and innovation in biotech sector and startups. I'm quite involved since 5 to 10 years now in the startup sector. So I see this innovation also as a driver of change, but not the only one. So the challenges ahead for us are quite huge in a lot of time. So it's a very interesting, it's very challenging time. It's we have let's say it's giving hope, and it's giving also this. It's complicated, as I said. Sophie said it goes hand in hand with a personal journey, and how to find your true self in a way, and how to also to grasp this the magnitude of the changes, and what role you can play into that. But it goes also with a more systemic approach. How can you act at the system level? What can you do? How you understand the system level to drive the change, to address the challenges? So this is a very complex topic. It's a very broad topic too, and I think innovation, and we're going to discuss it later on, has a role to play to that, but it's not the only factor. And I'm really happy to discuss that now with you, and have this open discussion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Michel. And just something that comes to mind is that actually it's interesting. We are here with materials innovation, and we talk a lot about material in circular economy, about the cycle. But something that for me is huge, and I see very much present, I think, in this space, is the non-material, because I think when we talk about biomimicry and circular economy, there's a huge space. In fact, they say 99% of the space is the non-manifest, of the universe. It's a very small percentage that we actually see. So the idea is how much of actually what can we learn from nature that's about our philosophy, our way of thinking, that is also biomimicry, because learning from nature is not only learning at the actual physical elements, but also learning from the patterns, the messages, the way things work, the beauty of the interconnectedness of everything. And, this whole idea of the Gaia philosophy, and, is nature competitive by nature, as they say, when they show us these National Geographic videos of just people, and this idea of Darwin, that it was apparently totally actually not the case, because Darwin didn't think like that at all, as we understand. But he was actually a very, a nature lover, and he had a very different idea of nature, that the way he's presented, the survival of the fittest, that has been the mantra for the last, few hundred years. So I think it's a very interesting topic also to think about this non-manifest as well as the material. I think the two have to come together. So that's the last bit. I think is fantastic to be here, and very interesting to be listening to the audience. And this is going to be participative. So when we do the poll, I hope we can get people to then also raise their hands and actually jump in. So Jean-Paul is going to guide that with his next poll, I believe, now.
Yes. I will. So everybody is now hopefully familiar with the application. So I saw a lot of people putting their feedback. So we are going to go to our first poll now. I hope you can see this very clearly. So it's about which player do you think will be most contribute to the shift towards a regenerative economy. Here, what we are looking is to see whether you think the main players will be corporates, SMEs, startups, or other, and we will then dig in what is the other. So you can see what's happening with the voting system. So we see 33% of people think it's corporates, only 17% startups. Are you sure about it? And 50% of others.
Everybody's
so
welcome. Yeah, this is completely open, so you can welcome to change your responses. But I think it's a very fluid discussion anyway. I understand, but I'm very fascinated with the 38% others winning. That's a good sign from my point of view. But fantastic, yeah. So, Jean-Paul, did you want to keep it on the screen or? Oh. So is everybody more or less voted? I hope everybody has had a chance to vote.
The corporates and others are winning, apparently.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Wow, SMEs are now getting up. So stabilizing and 25 times 4.
So we have 21 participants, more or less adds up, Jean-Paul, that everybody, I hope, has had a chance.
I think we can lock it in. So basically, we can launch the first row of discussions.
Okay, it's very interesting. I think the standing side by side, the corporations and the others are on one side and the other, and then the SME and startups in the middle. Very interesting picture. So I open the discussion in this first round to the experts. I would like you to feel free to put up your hand and go whoever wants to go first.
Yeah.
Sophie, please go ahead.
Yeah, so it's an interesting picture indeed. Yeah, my vote would be for other, and then it would be a hybrid form, kind of an ecosystem where, I mean, the different parties are working together to realize the change. But it's interesting to see corporates score well. I mean, normally, and I think that is because there are some corporates really making the change at the moment. But also, I mean, if we want to realize mass scale change, we need to transform the corporates. I mean, that we cannot do without them because they will not all cease to exist. So I think the future is really in a hybrid form of where the startups and SMEs really inspire the corporates to change faster and to work together to realize this. So therefore, I think, I mean, this other has a huge potential, which, I mean, some corporates have been experimenting with, like Unilever, where they acquired lots of B Corps and sustainable startups to fuel more sustainable innovation inside their corporations.
Yes, very. Yes, Fabian.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting result, and especially the poll itself was interesting because I actually changed from startups to SMEs, and I think that the gradient, right? It's what we see here. It's a multi-stakeholder approach, but it's also a gradient in terms of time. So who starts this thing, and it's the change is driven a lot by the public and by user and customer demands now. Politics pick up, and then surely enough, it's the startups to pick up first. What, to my experience, it's the SMEs who are a bit more flexible to change if they are driven by a personal personal push. meaning they're led by family or owner-led and these things. And this is hardly the case with corporates, although we see some corporates, and the big examples we see, especially also from biomimicry, which changed because they were driven by single people, by people who put any energy to change the whole system, and that took a long time. So we need to start somewhere, and then we need to transition it to the corporates.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Fabian, see, Jean-Michel, your microphone. Hi.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's an interesting result. So I voted for others because I quite relate with Sophie's point of view. Is that you can probably not separate the ones who are going to be the more impactful between the corporate SMEs and startups. So everybody is working almost together. So it's a more systemic approach, and everybody has his role. It's like in an ecosystem. I think startups can open the way to drive and demonstrate some innovative behavior change or new products or innovation. But for the massive scale out, the corporates are the best tool to do so because they have the reach, they have the capacity. In terms of, I think everybody has his role to play. In terms of, especially for me, for driving innovation or change of new products or habits and new habits in the products. I think, yeah, you have everybody has his own role and is playing. So there's not, they're all going together. It's not one or the other one. I think, and like for instance, corporate do change also. They change also based on what the consumer are asking, what the funding and the finance are requesting now. So we see massive change in the way of fundings and requirements in terms of sustainability standards and how corporates have to adapt also now in terms of transparency and ways. So this is just a minimal level. So then you have very inspiring corporates like Patagonia Interface that fix high objectives in terms of willingness to drive a change, and this is usually based on a personal driven mission by the CEO or the founders. And yeah, I think it is interesting results. For me, everybody has his role to play, and I quite relate also to Fabian's point of view that SMEs are very interesting actors because they're in between, so they have more resources than a startup. But they're not as big as corporates. They're more locally based, so they're more flexible. Usually, then you can also, it's easier to drive the change in the mindsets in the SME culture than in the corporate culture because the founders are still present. You have smaller management teams, and they also form the major consistence of our economies. So it's not. Corporates are big structures, but when you look at the statistics and the number of SMEs and smaller companies, they represent the majority of the workers and the workforce too. So I think it is complicated. It's more complicated to get inside the SMEs because these are small structures who are facing the urgency of the day-to-day. So it's very difficult for them to step back and to change their strategy or to change their way they conceive their culture. But it's a strong factor of change too. So yeah. I'm a bit even about that. So I have 25 between the FD funds. And then for me, there's one missing actor is the public actor. So public actors and governments have a very important role to play. They are key drivers. So we don't have to forget all the regulations. Regulation is a major driver of baselines of change. So if you don't push together, collectively push to impose new standards in terms of what our politicians aim, what our willingness, and this is relates to for the tipping points of the 20%. So what is the critical mass to drive a change in how our policies are driven, how they're going to build to impose standards that are more in favor of the change. So it's the carrot and the stick. So we need the carrot to drive the consumer behaviors, to give some attractiveness, to give also the perspective of giving more meaningful opportunities for everybody. But also we need the stick and the capacity to fix ambitious standards and change that are going to drive also the adaptation of everybody on the more ambitious baselines.
Yes, fantastic. Yes, I think that's general understanding is that there's going to be some overall shift going on. I mean, my doubt is put to maybe the audience, maybe somebody can also give us 2-minute response on this, that it's also a question of the distribution of power in a way, because, you know, SME startups and this others, 99% maybe of the let's say the business space, you know, in terms of the volume and in terms of employment, even the majority of employment is from the smaller companies in Europe, for example. And the question is, yeah, whether we could have this transition happen from all the different actors at the same time, or this other is going to be driving it. So I think Jean-Paul is nicely actually reminding me that there's another poll to bring us to that discussion. So we'll just respond to that poll and go to open it up to the rest of the participants. So this one says, for a purpose-driven organization to thrive, which one of the following dimensions is less relevant? So the idea is that actually this is an important point, because can we actually have regeneration, for example, without any of these things? Can we really truly transform these corporations or other businesses if one of these things is not aligned and, you know, totally part of the regeneration equation? You know, the equation that we're trying to build is, I saw in Kate Rayworth's presentation recently when she was talking about the purpose, the networks, the ownership of the organization, the governance. This is exactly taken from Kate's donut economics model. Because if all these things are not aligned, how can we do that?
And if I may ask, we don't want to bias everybody, but we want to make we make to help you to reflect on what are the main topics, and maybe there are some other topics that you want to share. And after that, if I understand well, Sharam, we are going to open up, so we will also give the possibility for people to pop in and give some comments. It will not be only the speakers.
Okay, so this is interesting because absolutely, yes, as you say, Jean-Paul, the question is whether, okay, so for a purpose-driven organization to thrive, 27% are saying purpose is not actually relevant. I'm trying to think if everybody got the right end of the stick there. maybe that's the case. Maybe to have purpose-driven organizations, you don't need purpose.
But I think we
maybe the poll is a bit to make us think. You know, it's done in the kind of reverse.
We need a lot of purpose, and we hear a lot about purpose-driven organizations, and maybe people do not figure out that if you are not aligned with net worth, governance, ownership, and finance, you cannot really achieve your high purpose. Purpose is just words if it's not supported by the networks, governance, ownership, and finance.
Yeah, and by networks we talk about, the value chain, the employees, the stakeholders, the citizens, the consumers, who, you know, your entire network. Sorry, Jean-Paul.
Yeah, go ahead. So I'm very curious. So apparently people are very much into the known, which means that there's something, none of those are important, which is driving me very, very curious about it.
I think what we're saying is that they're all important, no? If you put the non, the idea was that what we're saying, you remember you twisted this on its head to get everybody to think. That's what you,
yeah.
So I think that actually my take from this is that people think that they're all important because you can't forego, you can't ignore any of them. And that's what that 68% means. Is everybody, what we said it would do, Sophie had a great idea of one of the popular ways of doing it is a fishbowl, where anybody from the audience puts up their hand, and then if they are happy to share the video or not, they start helping us respond to this, because the idea is that this is participative and we can get also a response on the first part as well. So is anybody from the team of participants wanting to comment
Yeah, anybody
on the
that
view of
voted
this?
for the 68%, please raise hands and dare to say something.
Yeah, like to
They're
explain
there
why.
to challenge the speakers, and they're there to challenge us, and just share.
This 20% tipping point is not going to happen if we don't all participate. So we all want to be part of this.
Yeah, so apparently there are not so many people willing to talk about it or to share about it.
Oh, Anne is here. Please go ahead, Anne. Anne Snick, hello.
That's me. Wait, I'll show my face.
Ah, hello, Anne. How are you?
Yeah, sorry, I came late. I was like turning in around on this Eventbrite page. I was getting frustrated. Okay, sorry.
Oh, okay. Did you get anything you want us to update you quickly on, or you're okay with that?
I think I get the gist of where you were, what you were. I saw the poll, but I'm okay. No, I also voted for none, because I mean, from a systems perspective, I think it's really clear that all these, you know, the system is very complex, and one actor, if your purpose, like of a large corporation, is to make a profit for your shareholders, then your aim will not be to, you know, close your factory as soon as there's enough products, or diminish you can't diminish your production because the finance does not allow you, and etc., etc. So I think it's just one big mesh, and we're going to change the system, or we're not going to change at all. Like, I think ownership is extremely important. Look at all the cooperatives, at community supported agriculture and community land trusts, where nature is no longer turned into a commodity, but is, you know, becoming part of an ecosystem in which humans get access to the offerings of nature without exploiting it. I think it's a very systemic approach.
Yes, Jean-Michel, you wanted to say something, and Olivia, who's from the participants as well, can go next if you want.
That's very interesting too, because it's very complicated to answer to that now, because everybody has a different understanding about the words and the different context. Like the ownership, if you take it in the context based on land access and ownership of decision making, ownership of community-based access is very important. But if you take the case of startups or SMEs or businesses, for me, if you have a good governance structure, the ownership is less relevant, because it's the governance who takes over the ownership questions, because then the ownership, you just own shares. You can you own something, but you don't take decision of it, what's happening there. So it's very important then to clarify, and I say it's purpose-driven organization. It's okay. The word organization is something very, very important too. In which context, in which frameworks, in which system you're applying it, and that's why you probably don't have the none. So you probably have to have everything in place, to have this kind of more systemic reading of the situation and the impacts that can have.
Thank you. And can I just ask Olivia to go next, because he was raising his hand as well. Sorry about it.
Yeah, okay. I was a bit confused with this question with the known, because it's like, I think there is some coach around the table here. And when we talk about action, we need to have like a level of values for each items that are criteria. It means that all criteria shouldn't be on the same level. So when you have to do an action, a decision, you have to decide which one is the most important for the context, for the moment. So yeah, all of them are relevant, but as you say, there is a systemic things here. Maybe we have to have like a draw of which items is important in which moment in the system. I mean, purpose is really important, but if the governance don't apply, don't have the courage to apply the purpose, so the purpose have no sense. So each one is really important, but at which moment? I mean.
So it's a systemic approach as well. Okay, so Fabian, so you wanted to say something as well?
Yeah, I can pick up on that actually, and also what Jean-Michel was saying. So yeah, of course, it's a systemic interdependency, and always with such systems, there is no start and no end, right? It would be great to just rate these items and say, okay, you start here and then you get all the way there, but that's not possible. Still, we need to start somewhere. And I remember a panel discussion like a year back or something, where an impact investor said, well, I want to invest in impact startups, but I know the return on investment is lower, right? So the politics, government should give the framework, right? And then basically the governments and parliament here, especially in Germany, they put out a climate law that doesn't solve the purpose at all, but rather caters to the corporates and the lobbyists. So where to start there? And well, I think we just have to start somewhere, and then it pushes the whole system. And who's the driver? Really, in the end, probably doesn't really matter. One example is, for example, I work with an NGO and pro bono, which is called German Zero. So they write by themselves, like a bottom-up approach. They write a new climate law. They want to bring it into parliament and want to have climate protection secured through the through basic laws in Germany, and these are people, these are citizens writing a law, and this will push the whole economy. If it goes through, will push the whole economy to change, and it's just a bottom-up approach. So it's not the corporate who change first, because they might need actually the framework. So I guess in a systemic approach, you can identify leverage points, but then you have to just start at a certain system, at a certain point, to push the whole system in one direction.
I think it's everybody's looking at a systemic approach. I think that's a big topic there. So Jean-Paul, you were saying?
Sophie, very simple comment. You can go on, but then we have to go to the third point, and we are going to start the wrapping up. Okay, go ahead.
I think, how Kate set this up is, I think what is very important is how to define purpose, because it is very clear that a systemic approach is needed. But if the purpose is not a regenerative purpose and in service of regeneration and social and environmental change, then we find ourselves in a destructive wheel of a system that is destructive. So that is, I think, the challenge. Purpose is the connector of all these different elements, and only if the purpose is regenerative, actually this system is an ecosystem that is regenerative. And I think that is the key challenge, and also the challenge for corporates, because they're set up in the old economy with a destructive system and not with a purpose that is truly regenerative in most cases. A few exceptions are there, like Interface and Patagonia, but there are just very few. So I think that is, the definition of purpose is currently still a huge challenge that needs to change in many, many organizations to operate as a true connector of a system that is healing.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think so. I see Jean-Michel wants to add up something. Go ahead, Jean-Michel.
Quick comment is that I totally agree with that, and one capital element missing currently is the visibility about the impact, the accountability of the impact within the, I would say, the more entrepreneurial world and corporate world, is that you don't have metrics. So even if you drive a purpose of regeneration, we should be able to have the right metrics, and even for those who don't, because then if you can show the right metrics and highlights the fact that the ones who are driven by regenerative purpose do perform way better on the key metrics, then the other ones will also align. And this is a very, very important topic too.
Thank you very much, Jean-Michel. I just want to share something I discussed also with a company recently this week. Belgian company producing appliances for home things, very dependent on oil systems, and they are looking ahead on. I think they are like interface in this segment, and they say today we buy secondary raw materials that are recycled. We buy it more expensive than the virgin one that are petrol dependents. So it doesn't make sense financially, but they do it because it's a family owned. So there is a hero mentality here for generations, and they are driving the sector, and they are today they are eating their margins, but they see if tomorrow there is a CO2 tax, we are completely risk of. We do not face this big risk that other companies are facing. So it's really. I think purpose is also driven to awareness, and awareness is not something you can buy here or there. Awareness is something that needs to be developed inside, like Sophie said in the beginning. It's something that you grow yourself into. Okay, so let's go to the next one because we are running out of time.
I noticed Fabien wanted to say something. I think what you're going to say is going to be relevant in the next poll, definitely.
Could start the poll already in parallel, or?
Yes, what I'm saying is, yeah, you could do the poll, and I'm sure the response is also going to be relevant to this poll. Right. But go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly on what Jean-Paul said. Yes, of course, there are companies who are driven by purpose, by the energy of single people, and that is great, and they really create case studies that guide the market. On the other hand, that wouldn't change on a big scale. So that's what I'm saying. So other like carbon tax, for example, when I was just talking about governance frameworks, they will completely change the game. So everybody, so like recycled material would actually be cheaper than raw material, and that can make a whole difference. But of course, so I mean, like purpose is one driver. It's a driver for the peaks, but not so much on a large scale.
Thank you, Fabien. This is an interesting question because we see the circular economy in the mainstream is a lot of talk around the material footprint. So the question is whether really what we're talking about in the circular economy is also the carbon and water footprint, the financial cycles, which are often left out. We're talking about this systemic approach. What's the human impact, you know, like some people talk, and the social and environmental symbiosis would be the most, I would say, optimistic and holistic approach to say, look, how do we actually live in synergy with nature as human beings and in all our activities from a material and non-material way? Because many times, like in frugal economy mentality, the idea is actually that if we stop consuming so much, we actually have so much more positive impact than constantly looking for technology to solve our problems, to continue having an intensive material lifestyle and thinking that that's going to solve our purpose. But the question is, if we get the purpose right, maybe we don't actually need so much material to keep us happy. So maybe COVID-19 has given us a little reboot there, a reboot in the boot. Here we go. So please, Fabien
wants to add something.
Yeah, really, I'd like to have to spur the conversation here, or the to challenge that a bit. I completely agree with you, Sharam. I would like to see it that way as well. Just heard in another panel discussion that that they say if we really want to change like big corporates with all the employees, which is, as Anne said, or Sophie, like sometimes bigger than nations, we actually need to finance that. So we need actually income, which actually would require a green growth and not a degrowth. This is really to challenge this assumption that you were just putting out. I'm not sure I completely agree with it, but I'm happy to discuss that here.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, because that's a big challenge, and the question is really, yeah. I look for Jean-Michel to respond to that one.
I do agree, but because it's again we tend to oversimplify things. So you can have a degrowth on certain sectors and a growth on other ones. So the green growth could be profitable for everybody, and driving regenerative technologies that can have the positioning on the market. So they can have, you need value creation to drive change, to finance innovation, to finance change, to fund that. But this, you don't have to have a whole system growth. You can have a decreasing in several sectors of activity and a growth in other one. And this is what's happening. So this is the shift of the economy. So it doesn't have a global degrowth, but you have a shift. Some sectors will grow better and faster than other ones, and that's what's currently now. So you see from this, we're living a very interesting moment. So you see that the first studies coming out that the sectors that were more in sustainability are more resilient towards the COVID crisis. So they are less impacted. So you have this kind of resilience coming up facing a crisis, and the resilient factors that are closely linked towards more circular approaches and regenerative business models to see. And then you see the funds trying to align to that too. So the funding perspective, the yields on these type of sectors start to be better. So the investments start also to grow up. Investment funds start to be more stringent in the investment criteria. So there you see a change within the whole economic system itself. So they're going to drive the future of growth. This is more aligned with the objectives. The fact is that, okay, the question is, okay, how can we change our habits to drive other ways of consumption in a way, to free more time, to see, okay, how we share. And it's for me, it's going back to the question you mentioned very earlier at the introduction of the seminar is, okay, how we face the social economic inequalities, this huge gap between the wealth repartition. I think that's a very crucial questions to put a line with the challenges that we have currently facing, is that if you manage to build up a system where you have a better repartition of the wealth, then in the new habits, you probably can drastically change the way we're behaving and enable everybody. It's like the question of universal revenue for everybody, which it's a bit what happened. And I think that's also the COVID offers a nice experimenting lab to that, to see, okay, what do people do when they have a bit more time? For some of them, not everybody. So myself, I didn't have more time, but some people had more time, or how we're willingness to spend the time differently. By being secured in a way, because they're not doing their job, they're more paid. And you see that this is experimenting. So people start to go back and closer networks, to work more in the garden, to work on their proper resilience. And this is something very interesting insights in how a world could be different if you think about how we are reallocating the wealth also. And just the last comment between the growth also is that some countries will need to grow to achieve some standards. If you're speaking about 1,000 countries, you cannot come to them with a message, okay, we're going to degrowth. It's not different. So we have to take, I think, as a European and Northern European countries and more wealthy countries, the thought to think, okay, how we drive our shift in our own economic systems that gonna push the degrowth on deteriorating sectors and pushing forward and taking on the cost of developing these new sectors that then can probably spread over other countries and drive new change.
And I think that's very insightful. Really, I think we have discussed many times about kind of systematic changes and how we can also inspire people to the new economy. One of the things I want to mention is that I think this is some important things that we humans have two ways. So things happen in two ways. First, they happen here in our heads. Second, they happen in reality. So is something that we need is to create fictions that are like Yunus says, social fictions, not science fiction, but how we are going to live well in this planet. Because many people, I think that they are wealthy today or they are powerful today, they fear if, for instance, if the way to go to a regenerative economy is decentralization, is losing control, is sharing. How these people will find their place in the country, in the next planet, how they are going to keep things under control like they have been always. This is a major shift in thinking that needs to operate before to have this massive growth. So yesterday I saw this movie 2040, which is a kind of the following up of the French movie Demain, that tells a nice story about how the future can look like when we all start applying what we know we should do. But there are many things, there are many films we should shot today with many different particular angles to just inspire everybody, and everybody can find its place in this new society we want to build. So today, rationality is one thing we know we should do, we know we should change, but the emotional part, I think, is not yet ready. My personal feeling.
Okay, Anne, did you want to say something on that? Because I saw your chat had an interesting comment in there.
Yeah, I wanted to comment just quickly on the financial cycles. We tend to think that finance is like a given thing, like an unchangeable, as in fact it is a human construct. It's a social construct, and it's supposed to be a means to facilitate certain economic transactions. Now, the current money system is, in fact, in terms of biomimicry, it's a monoculture of bank-designed money. Banks have the fiat for money creation, and the banks are private companies that have as their aim to make money by making money, by selling money. So you have a runaway loop there, you have a reinforcing loop, so that you get a tipping point and making money becomes the aim rather than the means of economics, because of the design of this money system. So what's happening now, also in terms of startups and decentralization, there's a lot of innovative, decentralized money schemes there. I'm not talking about Bitcoin, which is still very speculative, but there's many other financial designs starting to pop up, and especially SMEs that take part on that on a regional scale. And they aim really at circularity, at social inclusion. So financial cycles, yes, on the condition that it's not a financial cycle that pursues its own growth.
Thank you, Anna. Yes, go ahead, Fabian.
Yeah, can I do that? Great. Because I think it's a very interesting discussion that's happening here on chat and also your input, Anna. And so I think what we should look at is really not financial value at all. This is sort of a token, and we believe it's the thing to go for. But it's value creation that we are thriving for. And what do we really create value for? It should be, yes, of course, society and people, but should also be the planet and the surroundings, because it's a closed system. So this life-centered approach of value creation is important, and finance can be, or financial tokens can be part of it. But basically, if you look into nature, it's always about an exchange of something, and in the end, it's an exchange of energy. So our money has to represent that energy change. And what I found is so important, especially when you want to bring people together to create value together, that it's about trust. So our currency is actually trust, and finance is, or like money is the same thing. We trust that we get back something for the money, and we can do that in some other ways as well. So I think we have to question why maybe money wasn't invented in the first place.
Okay, so just I'm concerned about time. I don't know if everybody's going to drop off at some point at 11 because they have other commitments. I'm flexible to go for another 5-10 minutes or just to wrap up nicely. But I would just like to tell people that are, the idea of this was to have a series. So the next one is going to be on government, education, and the NGOs, which is, the third sector and the first. And also the last one, which we want to do just before summer, is to look at the fourth sector, which is an emerging sector of hybrid organizations, all types of organizations. You can go to fourthsector.org to see what benefit and for-purpose organizations are about. Even the World Economic Forum is talking about them. So there's a whole lot of things you can call social enterprise and so on. So that last session is a little bit the response to the question on the survey, which was the other. Which is a kind of a citizen prosumer type of driven societies based on the type of things that Anne was also talking about, crypto economics, decentralized, social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, and public-private collaboration with corporations, but not that they take your idea and they just suck it up like a Hoover, into their system, but a way of actually collaborating to build a different system. So this is just a little bit the scene, and the idea is how do we take this into a report that we can present through the Circular Economy Club to say, look, here we have a co-created workshop of thinkers and actioners, you know, more than thinkers, but we want to do something that is a kind of like a proposal for a framework that can be used as a common framework to define what do we mean by purpose, what do we mean by circular economy, what's the scope of that, you know, what are these different cycles, and what should finance look like in supporting this ecosystem. So we are having some very interesting discussions about finance because it's a sensitive topic. But as we say, it's, you know, if we want to see how to fix the problem, sometimes we can look at what the Americans say, follow the money, and see where the problem is today. If all the money of the wealth and the value of the economy is being channeled through a banking system and institutional funds into hands of 1% that are, every time we have a financial crisis, they just get a little bit richer and everybody gets a little bit poorer. So we have to wonder if something is majorly wrong in the way that organization is set up, and the fact that it's not distributed. So so we already know we have to go to a distributed system. We know that it's about distribution of value. Nobody's saying we don't need the finance and the value to drive growth. The question is, where's the value being distributed and where's the growth happening? Is it towards green growth? Is it being distributed towards the community, or is it going into the hands of very few? So all these things are questions, I think, that we have to hopefully answer as we go through this series. But I would like to open it to anybody who wants to carry on, and please go ahead. We have a free session. If you're happy with that, Jean-Paul.
I just want to adapt to what Sharam said, and I think when we started this idea of a webinar, the idea was not to stay on report or on discussions, but we want to land it on real actions. So actions can be anything, or can be supporting ourselves at different levels, but do something in the end. I think I've started, now that I'm behind this circular economy concept, I'm starting to see that there are some very good examples even in the industry, SMEs working together, starting, like Fabian said, starting to share something. So forming circular ecosystems. This is something I start to see now in some very few cases where they organize around, for instance, sharing raw materials, which is how the nature works. So nature works a lot about sharing water, sharing nutrients and all this. So no one big tree gets all and the rest dies. It's all about sharing. How can we start bringing this knowledge outside? How can we together be stronger? I don't know. Please go ahead.
I think the last comment on my side, because we'll have to move. But I think that Sarah's comment is very interesting to take back. And I have 2 points. It's that don't forget the time frame. So it's very interesting to see, and the potential of innovation is great. The potential of change is important. The capacity to change is huge. But the time frame is very, very, very short. So we have very little time to drastically change, and this is I think the most important challenge. Even if you look at innovation, the time that a startup comes with a solution, develops a solution, that the solution scales, is adopted, and has a huge impact, you're speaking about 10 years already. And this is the time frame that's almost left to prevent major damages relating to climate change. So this is one first thing, and I'd like to relate back to what Sophie was saying at the beginning. Is I think for me the critical aspect is a personal one. Is that if you look at the personal as a systemic approach, is that we are all individuals. If we drive on our own behaviors, and how can we reflect towards these challenges in the time frame? How can we change our habits? How can we drive and being driven by a purpose that drives regeneration? Okay, then initiatives do pop up, and it's probably more too complex to try to grasp and identify which is the best strategy, which is the most important one. If you take the more systemic approach, you need to emerge them, and systems will change, will adapt, but it comes down from the personal level. It starts at the personal level, and if you're driving, if you be coherent with your choices already and your beliefs, but by changing your behaviors, changing your habits, this will be probably the most important changing factor and drivers of change without knowing where it's going to go, because you cannot control that. But if you define the frameworks and enable the systems to allow these initiatives, to everybody to push his own initiatives, his own expertise, and giving him the possibility, this is for me how you create the frame that enables this emergence of new approaches. That's probably the most important, the way forward, I believe, at least. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Michel. It's a very nice ending as well on your note. You said you had to go, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we're happy.
But I'm happy to catch up with all of you. So if some people want to contact.
Yeah, so the next time we will have, the next time will be on June 10th. We will post an invitation on LinkedIn. So please register. It will be also available in Eventbrite.
So yeah, in the meanwhile, we'll open up, if you want, Jean-Paul, to some people who are making some very interesting comments about,
Thank you,
for example, the role of Europe. Thank you. Yeah, and we can carry on for 10 minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye for anyone who has to go.
I think indeed, okay, goodbye. I think Sarah Whale made a very good comment. It said, I was wondering whether Sarah wants to speak up, turn on your video and just pop in.
Or even without the video, if you don't want to, as long as the audio is there, we're very happy. So if you want to raise your hand.
Can I speak? I am on Zoom. Yes?
Yes, hi, sir. Sarah, hi. Thank you. Just let me unmute you. Oh, is that something I have to do? Unmute audio. Yeah. Do I have to do that, or you? Yeah, you're on now.
Yes, she's fine.
Oh, right, okay. I can't see myself, so it's a bit disconcerting. I did struggle with Eventbrite, actually, just to let you know, like Anne. I struggled to get logged on.
We have to fix that.
So I've worked in finance for 30 years, mainly in the SME space. And the reality, I believe the reality of expecting SMEs to not look at the financial value, I think it's overly optimistic. What's happening is they are so focused on the numbers, they're so focused on pressures from banks, investors, and whatever we think they should be looking at, it just feels like the wishes and the realities are so far apart, just from what I've seen in my career. So my kind of view on this is that if you can take them on a journey and help business leaders really understand the financial impact of doing this, because I think we all believe that it's the right thing to do, not only for society and the environment, but it's the right thing for their financial health. If you can take them on a journey and prove that to them, then I think you will actually slow down to speed up, if that makes sense. So that's just based on what I've witnessed from my finance career.
I think it's a wonderful point, and that last thing you said about slow down to speed up, actually it talks to this idea we have. One of the things I hope comes out of this is called a slow accelerator. It's how do you build these accelerators like Silicon Valley, but actually to slow everything down. So it's an oxymoron, but I think it's a very good point around what you're saying to actually understand how can we create financial value in a different way.
Yeah, how can we get people to look at things in a different way, really?
Okay. Good. Sophie, you want to say something there?
Oh yeah, I fully agree there. I think proving the business case and providing the financial risk when not doing the right thing, basically, that takes people on a journey and makes them take a wider view, like Sarah was saying. So I think that is, super important, because focusing on the right thing, which of course some leaders embrace, is for the majority of business leaders not enough to make the transformation.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I see also some of us that are left. I think Vera is got a very interesting organization doing real things, coming from corporate background. Vera Mandik is on here. I don't know, Vera, if you're available to share a little bit something on B-Spark as an example of, with your history with corporations, if you want to share your video or no. And
Sure.
Yeah, hi.
Hey there, hey everyone. Sorry for not being in a video format before. I will be, if I'm not wrong, Sharma, I will be in the next panel.
Yes, we're hoping to have you definitely on the education side. Yeah.
Great. So basically, B-Spark is a systemic response to the challenges that we are having in terms of leadership. And you have been tackling a little bit on that one in terms of that we need to change in order for the system to change, right? So what I have been analyzing for a lot of years is why do leaders act as they do, and what is needed from behavioral point of view for them to change, to think in different form, in a collaborative form, in something that is good for the society, that is good for the environment, that is good for the system. But so like changing ourselves to change the world, basically. Shortly, I don't want to take up much more time here.
No, please, because I would love to hear your view in terms of what was said. You know, just if you want to take a little bit more time in terms of how, you know, because you're working with young leaders, it sounds like, you know, but then you're also doing some training with older leaders as well, you know, that are already active in the space. But I don't know if you feel like sharing anything more on, you know, how this can be integrated into an ecosystem, because this thing about purpose is very etheric, you know, it's like an ether. Everybody kind of knows what's being good and what's purpose, but we don't have it defined. And we're moving into a space of coaching. As I speak with Sophie and yourself, we're talking about therapy, coaching. You know, how do we define, you know, this line between recovering ourselves, our own inner emotional health and connection with each other and nature, and our understanding of who we are and what's our purpose, and healing that. And then this dualism, that's kind of business, like you put on your hat and you go to work and you're like, okay, now I'm a professional, you know, I'm gonna do my job, you know, so how do we define, how do we break those boundaries?
I think, I mean, it's not breaking the boundaries, but finding a way to work together, like in a synergy with those two things. Like, and it's a journey. So it's something that you need to continuously be evolving and be working with, but with a specific goal in mind. Because of course we are all evolving from the things that we see and how we do things. But when you put your effort and your energy and your focus on how you want to evolve and why you want to evolve, both in business sense and in personal sense, that's when we can find that synergy, and that's where we can find the path for the future, so to say.
Okay, so I think here we're kind of agreeing that we need to kind of bring these into the organization, you know,
Definitely.
kind of somehow unite. It's not like going to work and then getting therapy, you know, at the end of the week, saying, what have I been doing? You know, maybe like, how do you bring these two together into the same space, you know, and say, look, how do we bring the inner purpose?
What we do normally is all the assignments that we give to the students are the assignments that they need to apply in their real life. And they need to analyze how they behave in their organizations, whether it's a big corporation, whether it's a small entrepreneurship, etc. And to discuss that, the effects on the result and the effects on them as well. So it's like when you put it into real world and not talking in generics and only in your personal life is where we can see the effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, see, I think there's a lot of also the thing around entrepreneurship. I think we have to build this separation between what's a job and what's entrepreneurship, because I see so many people that are doing their purpose one way or another, and they're so happy, you know, that even with less income, and they've made the jump. A lot of people are jumping the ship, as they say, you know, now. And they're doing things. And in a lot of older societies, like Asian societies, you see entrepreneurship much more part of day-to-day life, because you don't have these secure jobs. And people are just doing creativity, doing lots of things, 5 jobs at the same time. But, you know, maybe it's very tough. But this idea of jobs that they kind of give you, you sit in the desk, or you have, I mean, that's all changing. But this whole concept of job and security, we have to also wonder where that's going. You know, that almost it's kind of like this, I was thinking that the line between a job and slavery in some extreme forms is sometimes very thin, because you're kind of enslaved into your role. And the only difference is you're getting paid for it, whereas in the old days, the same organizations pretty much weren't paying you for it. The history of corporations going back several years. You know, now we're getting paid for it. We have some good conditions. They give you a car, they give you this, that, you know. But is it really, you know, so these are the questions I think around purpose. Maybe we can also think about. Anybody wants to say anything else? Sami, from your built environment and circular economy perspective, do you want to say anything? Or Hussein and Ikse and Olivia, you're still there, and upcyclers. Would you like to add anything so we can also know for the next course? Olivia, you're going to be talking in the last one as well, I hope. You go ahead.
Yeah, with pleasure. Yeah. So I keep time for next one. But yeah, it was really exciting to hear everybody here about this topic, financial, economic, and also how we can change the world by changing ourselves. It's something I will talk more in the next topic with the game perspective also. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that the finance and crypto side with it's very important there as well. Okay, anybody wants to throw in the last word, or Jean-Paul?
Well, I just want to say to everyone, I think this is a very first time we try to gather all of us, and it's being a very nice moment. So let us keep connected, keep building, and keep reinforcing our good intentions with actions. We will see each other hopefully the next 2 episodes.
And Sami, do you want to say something? I see you're unmuted. Or you're okay? No.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you, Sami. Yeah, on both. Yeah, you got two devices.
I had a trouble. I had trouble with the phone. Yeah, just to thank everybody. It was a very good first step. I'm happy that it's done. And yes, let's keep the topics for the next episodes, if you don't mind, because if I would start talking, I'm afraid it's going to take a long discussion. But yes, there's a lot of more topics to be discussed later on. But thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sami. Sure. All right.
Sharam and Jean-Paul, this is Ikse. Thank you very much for this first time, and I think it's opening thoughts and discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jean-Paul.
Happy that you made it.
Yes. Okay, fantastic. Okay,
thanks,
so
and thanks, Sharon, for organizing.
Yes, thank you very much. We've been very nice to have you here. Lovely, and we'll keep going and keep you updated as well on anything that's new that comes out of this.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye.
All the best. Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So maybe you can stop the recording now.
Yes. So I'm gonna just we have one person that's here that. Okay, so yeah, we can stop the recording.